in that 1 minute, another 24 men, women, or children were involved in some type of domestic abuse. Thank you for that moment of silence. Representing the North Texas Council for International Visitors is the chair of the Global Women's Initiative, Lisette Handel, who will be making a special introduction of our guest of honor.
Thank you, Mike. On behalf of the North Texas Council for International Visitors, I would like to extend my appreciation to the City of Dallas and Mr. Caraway for his generosity in hosting Lakshmi today. And thank you to the distinguished panelists for taking the time to come here and share their knowledge and expertise. NTCIV is a local nonprofit who has been hosting international guests for the U.S. Department of State for over 60 years. Our mission is twofold. First and foremost, NTCIV is working to bring the world to communities in North Texas and to promote the exchange of knowledge and information with countries around the world. Furthermore, NTCIV supports the goal of our federal government of winning hearts and minds through citizen diplomacy. In December 2013, NTCIV launched the Global Women's Initiative with the purpose of providing a platform for connecting both private and public international women-focused organizations to individuals, companies, and NGOs in our local community, and to promote dialogue and follow-up for sustainable global projects. Today, we are hosting Lakshmi as part of this initiative. Lakshmi is a young woman from India who at age 15 suffered an acid attack by a 32-year-old man that she refused to marry. This is a crime that we cannot even fathom in this country. Lakshmi became the standard bearer in India for the movement to end acid attacks. She has made numerous television appearances and successfully gathered over 27,000 signatures to petition the Indian Supreme Court to regulate the sale of acid. As a direct result of her efforts, stores must now maintain inventories of all acid stock, and purchasers must provide identification and proof of address. Violators face stiff penalties. In addition, states must pay $5,000 to victims for immediate medical care. Much is left to be done, but Lakshmi continues to advocate for acid attack victims throughout India, for increased compensation, rehabilitation, effective prosecution, and prevention. Lakshmi runs a shelter for acid attack victims and recently started hosting her own television show. Ladies and gentlemen, please meet the 2013 Indian of the Year and recipient of the U.S. Department of State International Women of Courage Award, Ms. Lakshmi Shah.
Thank you so much. 2005 में 22 अप्रैल को मेरे ऊपर एसिड अटैक हुआ था, जो कि 32 इयर्स का लड़का था और मैं उस टाइम पे 15 इयर्स की थी। उन्होंने शादी के लिए बोला था और मैंने शादी के लिए मना किया, तो उन्होंने मेरे ऊपर अटैक किया।
In 2005 April, a 32-year-old guy threw acid on me. I was only 15 years at that time, and he did this because I refused to his proposal to get married to him, and he splashed acid on me.
बट उसके बाद भी मैंने अपनी लड़ाई जारी रखी और मैंने हिम्मत नहीं हारी और आगे बढ़ती गई, और उसके बाद फिर सुप्रीम कोर्ट में एक PIL डाला एसिड को बैन करने के लिए।
But I did not give up, and I continued with my struggle, and I continued to fight. And then I filed a PIL in the Supreme Court to fight against this.
और अभी 2013 में उसका रिजल्ट आप सबने सुना ही है कि मैम ने जैसा बताया आप सबको, और उसके बावजूद भी आज एक शेल्टर है, उसमें 50 से ज़्यादा सर्वाइवर को मदद किया जा रहा है इन दिल्ली।
And in 2013, the result, as you know, Lisette already told you what happened in 2013, how there was a stop on the sale of acid. And after that,
और वो हमारा एनजीओ नहीं है, वो शेल्टर एक कैंपेन है और हम उसको क्राउड फंडिंग में चलाते हैं।
And we are supporting about 50 such survivors of acid attack in our shelter. The shelter is not an NGO. We are helping it with the help of crowdfunding that we get by our appeals.
और एक एक लड़की का 80-80, 90-90 ऑपरेशन होता है, वो बहुत स्ट्रगल करती है। सिर्फ लड़की का एक फेस ही ख़राब नहीं होता है, पूरा बॉडी, पूरा करियर ख़राब हो जाता है और उसके बाद उसके पेरेंट्स में भी बहुत बर्डन पड़ जाता है, पूरा घर बिक जाता है, पूरी तरीके से लड़की बर्बाद हो जाती है।
Each surviving girl goes through a lot. She has to undergo about 80 to 90 surgeries. The parents literally lose everything. Their house, their wealth, everything on all these surgeries. And the girl does not just lose her face, she loses everything that she has, even her spirit.
और एक एक ऑपरेशन में बहुत पैसा लगता है, 2 लाख 3 लाख, और गवर्नमेंट कुछ भी हेल्प नहीं करती है किसी भी सर्वाइवर का।
Each surgery takes a lot of money. It's about 200,000 to 300,000 rupees. And the government doesn't give you any assistance in this.
और कानून में भी कोई बदलाव नहीं है। कानून में भी आज भी बहुत ईज़िली तरीके से एसिड बिक रहा है और पनिशमेंट भी 10 साल के बाद, 20 साल के बाद मिलता है, लेकिन वो पनिशमेंट कुछ मिलता ही नहीं है उन्हें, और किसी भी लड़की को कोई रिहैबिलिटेशन नहीं मिलती है।
Even today, the law has not changed much. Law has not been able to change much. The acid is still being sold in the open market. There's not much restriction, not much regulation even today. And the girls are not getting much rehabilitation even after all this.
आज भी हमारी लड़ाई जारी है और हम जब तक लड़ेंगे, जब तक कानून में कोई बदलाव नहीं आएगा। और खुशी इस बात की है कि जो अदर सर्वाइवर हैं उन्होंने आज अपने केसेस भी काफ़ी साल के बाद ओपन करे हैं। उनके अंदर इतनी हिम्मत आ गई है कि वो खुल के आज अपने आप को प्रेजेंट करती है और खुल के लड़ाई कर रही है।
So we will continue to fight, and we are continuing, and the good thing is that the survivors have now come out in the open. They are ready to fight another battle, and they have reopened a lot of cases now that are going way back.
और हमें एक दूसरे से बहुत हिम्मत मिलती है और मैं यहाँ पे आके बहुत खुश हूँ और बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है कि मुझे उस लायक समझा। और मैं यही चाहूँगी कि कोई भी वुमेन हो, हिम्मत ना हारे और हिम्मत करके आगे बढ़े, तभी दुनिया को उनके बारे में पता चलेगा और तभी उनको सपोर्ट मिलेगा सबसे। लेकिन अपने आप को प्रेजेंट करना पड़ेगा सबसे पहले तो।
I'm very happy to come here. I'm really, really very glad that I've been honored in this country like this. But all I want to say is that the women and the girls who are the victims should come out in the open. If they don't come out in the open, nobody's going to know their story. Nobody's going to help them. If they come out, they get all the support that they need. And that's how they're going to give courage to other women and other young victims.
और मुझे भी गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से कोई भी हेल्प नहीं मिली है, बट मुझे कुछ आम लोगों ने मिलके मुझे सपोर्ट किया है और मुझे रिहैबिलिटेशन दिलाया है। और आज मैं एक शो होस्ट कर रही हूँ, मैं एक न्यूज़ चैनल की एंकर हूँ।
I did not get any support from the government. It was the common people, the general public that helped me. And today I've been able to host a TV show. I'm an anchor woman for a TV show now.
अभी हम लोग अपना जो हमारा छाँव है एक शेल्टर, उसे हम लोग कन्वर्ट कर रहे हैं एनजीओ में, और हम लोग इंडिगोगो में और ट्विटर में हम लोग फंड रेज कर रहे हैं $8,000, ताकि हम आगे लड़कियों को अच्छी तरीके से रिहैबिलिटेशन दे सके, उनको भी अच्छा रिहैबिलिटेशन मिल सके। वो भी आज जिस जगह पे आप लोग मुझे देख रहे हैं, मैं चाहती हूँ कि सारी फाइटर्स इस जगह पे हो और मुझसे ज़्यादा ऊपर हो।
Our shelter, which goes by the name of Chow, which means shade, we are trying to convert that into an NGO, and we need $8,000 to convert that into an NGO. And for that, we have raised a fundraiser on Indiegogo and on Twitter. And I want that once it is converted into an NGO, we get more assistance, more help from the government, and then all the surviving girls, all the survivors, they should be standing at the place where I am today, and they should be able to do more, much more, and reach more higher heights than even I am today.
और हमारा कैंपेन का वेबसाइट है www.stopacidattack.org। आप उसमें जाके बहुत सारी चीज़ें देख सकते हैं, वेबसाइट को देख सकते हैं, किस तरीके से हम लोग काम करते हैं, हर टाइम हम लोग अपडेट करते रहते हैं।
Our website's address is www.stopacidattacks.org, and you can always go and check it out. It's constantly updated. You can see what kind of work we are doing, what kind of help we are giving, and you'll get to know better about it.
और हम लोग ज़्यादातर काम सोशल नेटवर्क से करते हैं, मोस्टली फेसबुक में लिखते हैं, इसी तरीके से हमारा काम होता है।
Our main media is the social network for Facebook, Twitter, and others, and that's how we're getting the attention and the funding.
थैंक यू सो मच कि मैं आज आप सबके बीच में हूँ और मुझे आप लोगों के बीच में अपनी बात रखने का मौका मिला, और मैं यहाँ पे आके बहुत 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 ज़्यादा खुश हूँ।
Thank you very much that you gave me the opportunity to come here and be with you, and I'm extremely, extremely, extremely happy to be here.
Once again, that story was, I don't know, how can you not hear that and not be touched by her story or passion? Once again, let's please. One of the things that about domestic violence, whether it happens around the world, but we're very concerned about what happens here in North Texas, and we're very appreciative of the city of Dallas, specifically the efforts of the Honorable Mr. Dwayne Caraway and his focus on domestic violence over the last several years. I want to thank him up front for allowing us to have our panel discussion here today. Now, we're going to have a discussion on a couple of pertinent issues as related to domestic violence. And after that, we will have an opportunity to receive questions from the floor. So I'll go through and introduce each of the panelists and allow them to speak for a minute or two about what their particular passion is as it relates to domestic violence, and then we'll go to some general questions. And also, I would also like to thank and acknowledge the media that's here today, and for Mary Kay and their contribution to helping to offer gifts to all of our panelists and distinguished guests. And I think that's Teresa Flores. Just wave your hand. Thank you. Again, representing the city of Dallas, the Honorable Mr. Dwayne R. Caraway. Mr. Caraway, tell us, how has domestic violence impacted you, sir?
Well, let me first say thank you for hosting, and let me give a very special thanks to Lexman. You have just been a trooper and a role model, and I encourage you to continue on behalf of all women over the world that suffer and run through this domestic violence and abuse. You are a jewel. Good Lord blessed us on this earth to have the most powerful and the most beautiful jewel, and that's woman. And we should wrap our arms around women and not put our hands on women.
Yes, sir.
When you look at the fact that we are such a blessed group of gentlemen, and the word gentleman means gentle man. It does not mean someone that's a bully, someone that's a coward, someone that believes in abusing and putting their hands on ladies. That's the definition of someone that's unstable and insecure, and shortlist a coward. How does it impact me? Well, I'll tell you how it impacts me, because as an elected official, I am dealing with circumstances every single day. People that are screaming out for help and direction and guidance. Folks that are looking for peace bonds and a way to go and get away out of a bad situation, and someone that's looking to protect their kids and themselves, and they're looking for directions. And a lot of these people, they simply do not know where to reach out. But being an elected official, many people have reached out to me, and we've helped a lot of folks. My door is open, my ears and my heart is open, and I encourage folks, when you know someone, it does not necessarily have to be you. Women, stand up, lead the way, because if you tell it, in short, on that person, then a cavalry will come over the hill, and we'll deal with him personally, and you don't have to worry about that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Caraway, for that powerful word, and particularly, again, for your efforts with men winning against domestic violence, and the launch that we had last year. That really distinguished Dallas on the map, and called to a lot of men to stand up. And I want to personally acknowledge your efforts with that event last year. Next on the panel, we have Dr. Donna Scott Tilley from Texas Women's University, also representing the Governor's Task Force on Domestic Abuse. Dr. Scott Tilley, how has domestic abuse come into your life? What would you like to say?
You're a tough act to follow. Left me a little bit speechless. I'm going to have to go into teacher mode. I was going to start by saying we're all aware of the shocking statistics about domestic violence. Are you aware of those? Do you want me to go through them real quick? Okay. 1 in 4 women. Did you read it for me? 1 in 4 women in this country are victims of domestic violence or intimate partner violence. A girl is most at risk for being hurt by a boyfriend in adolescence, right, about 15 or 16. And a woman often experiences domestic violence by a partner or husband when she becomes pregnant. The abuse escalates in frequency and intensity. So those are pretty awful and shocking statistics. The good news is things have gotten better since about 1993. The Bureau of Justice Statistics tell us that things have gotten better in the country. We've made progress, but we're not there yet. And Lakshmi's story, her response to this awful acid attack, is an exemplar for us all, I think. She was young when this happened, and she lived half a world away. But what she did and how she responded to that act is an important role model for all of us. And as you said, silence is the abuser's most powerful weapon. These abusers count on people in the community, friends, family, neighbors, even healthcare professionals, to be silent because it's a private issue. That's sometimes how it's seen. It's a private issue. It's their business. It's not my business. And I think that's a very misguided way of thinking about domestic violence. As friends, neighbors, co-workers, healthcare professionals, we need to ask and we need to speak up and not let the abuser have this weapon of silence on our part. There are a lot of wonderful things going on in North Texas. Your rally last year is one example. Your Men Against Domestic Violence, that's a wonderful example. But you don't have to be in city council to make a difference. Coach Joshua Ragsdale, anybody know who he is? Adamson High School. He's a coach at Adamson High School right here in Dallas. Last year, he had his football players take a very public pledge to help end domestic violence. Right, it was powerful. It didn't cost him a dime, it didn't take up a lot of his time, but he was using his influence to make a big difference for those boys when they're in their formative years. So I think that was a very powerful act that is a good role model for us. You don't have to be in a position of power. It's nice if you can be in a position of power, and one of the things that Texas is also doing now that is, I think, very impressive, House Bill 2620 was just established, and it has charged a task force that's comprised of people who run shelters for women, physicians, social workers, lawyers, nurses are all in this task force, and the Texas legislature has asked for that group to do extensive review and research and make recommendations about the best ways that we can improve the interface between victims of domestic violence and healthcare providers, because that's often the point of interface. And so Lakshmi's example was wonderful in that she didn't keep silent. She spoke out and took away the weapon of secrecy, and she recognized that we need a multi-pronged and rigorous approach, which is what the House bill does. So we have a long way to go, but I think North Texas is headed in the right direction.
Thank you very much. Next on our panel, we have Jessica Garza. And Jessica has a very passionate story in relation to domestic violence. Jessica.
It brings me great pleasure hearing what we're all saying here, because we're all in the same boat, coming from different directions. It's especially a blessing today because tomorrow, March 12th, will be 2 years that I gathered the courage to leave my abusive husband. So it's such an honor to meet an international sister now, because I feel that we've connected. It's been a long journey, and it's been one filled with lots of knowledge. And what I've learned from that is knowledge is the key to freedom. It truly is. I never saw it that way, but that's what I now want to impart with the other people who are affected by it. And I used to ask myself, why? Why did this happen to me? Why was I finally 40, pregnant, going to have my first baby? Why was I being abused? Why did I miscarry my baby? But most shamefully, why did I stay? And then through the knowledge and seeking help, I finally started asking myself, what? That's the main question. What can I do about it? Many, many years ago, I was a television reporter. I was standing right there with my photographer, and I was the one that was sharing these stories. And I felt very empty inside. I felt empty because I was just telling people, telling them the problem, and then I would go home. And it wasn't until that problem literally affected me, and then that answered my what. I want to be a part of the solution. I don't want to just tell you the problem. I want to be that solution. And so that brings me to how. And how? I love that we're all Christian here and go to our faith. My pastor, John McKenzie in Frisco, Texas, Hope Fellowship, gave me these words that resonate in my soul every day. Let your pain from yesterday heal you today so you can save others tomorrow.
Wow, that's
Isn't
deep.
that amazing?
That's amazing.
And that's how I live by every day. And through that, the number one step that I want to impart to everybody is acknowledgement. We have to acknowledge that there's a problem. It's so hard to admit it to yourself that you're in that situation, let alone to reach out. But I'm telling you, whoever's affected by this, the moment that you acknowledge that problem, you open those doors and you open them to get help. And I mean help, mind, body, and soul. I'm so blessed to have a friend here from Treasure You, Pat Nemeth Smith organization. They helped me tremendously, mind, body, and soul. My mind was Hope Store in Collin County. Genesis is here in Dallas County. Mentally, I was a broken mess. I thought I was unworthy. I thought I was alone. I thought no one could help me, and they helped me. My body, the foundation was my family. My sister, my brother-in-law opened up their doors to me. My soul, Hope Fellowship in Frisco, Texas. So once you acknowledge the problem, you could release it. And what I mean by releasing it is literally, you're holding on to that past, you're holding on to that anger and that pain, and you have to forgive. And once you forgive, you let go. And I had a special moment with Latchme. It's the former reporter in me, but I had to ask her, have you forgiven? And she said yes. And that's what we have in common. We have to forgive, but most importantly, we have to forgive ourselves. At the Treasury Retreat, I forgave myself. I've been speaking out, but I've never said my baby's name because I felt I wasn't worthy of saying her name. But her name is Mercy L. And she is the one that gives me the power to be here today. So, mind, body, and soul, let's reach out. Then you could truly move on. Acknowledge it, release it, and move on. How do you move on? By speaking, by finding that voice. City Council, wonderful TWU, and I've had the pleasure of meeting you with your organization. I haven't known your story yet, but I will. But we could all do it in our own way. If you can't literally open the doors like my sister, my brother-in-law did, then show them the way. Show them the way to those doors. Treasure You, show them the way there. Hope Store, show them there. Family Compass, it's all about prevention. Hurt people hurt people. My husband was hurt. Did it give him the right to hurt me? No. But we need to prevent that. Family Compass is there to help them. And I could talk forever, so I'll just pass it on.
Thank you so much. Next on the panel, we have another champion, Deborah Nixon Bowles and Deborah Bowles. Tell us about your story, please.
Sure, I'm going to make it short, but coming after her, I tell you, it makes me more determined every day to go out in these trenches and work with survivors. But I want to thank Mr. Caraway. A couple weeks ago, I seen him at K104, and you know, everyone that knows me, I'm always talking about we need more shelters in our city. And I was able to talk to him and ask him for more funding in our southern sector. And the first thing he said was, meet me down at the City Hall, and I'll let you walk in and talk to the mayor. And I want to thank you for that, Mr. Caraway. It lit a lot of fire in the southern sector. Everybody's all excited. It's like, Mr. Caraway walked you. I said, he really did. He really took me in. So, I mean, just knowing that, having a man on the front line. But those that know me, I'm very serious about domestic violence. I'm very passionate about it. I'm not ashamed about it because it affected me as a little girl. My father was abusive to my mom. And seeing that growing up, I thought that was normal for a man to beat a woman. I just thought that was normal. But I thank God today, I know that it's not normal. But the thing that touches me every day is that God uses me to go in these trenches to show the women that they can come out of this. He allows me to go in the trenches to let them know it is help out here. And every day that I'm in these trenches, you know, I get calls at 2 and 3 in the morning. I'm not fearful to go out there because I know God has his hands on me to help these women. And a lot of times when they call me 2 and 3 in the morning when they can't reach the churches or a family member don't have the funds, I literally go in the trenches and put them in hotels. I really put them in my vehicle and ride around. A lot of people know me for that because I'm not fearful, because I want women to know it's not okay to put your hands. I know what it's like. Even today, a lot of times people look at me and say, why do you turn your head to the left? Because my husband busted my eardrums. And a lot of times, even today, I tell people, you never know what a woman has been through. But it doesn't feel good when someone putting their hands on you. It doesn't feel good when your children has to go to school and they've been up all night, mom and daddy been fighting. I teach truancy, and a lot of times my little girls tell me my mama boyfriend raped me at night, so I'm sleepy trying to stay up. And this is why I'm in the trenches. You know, I left the Dallas Mavericks working many, many years. Donnie knows me. I work with athletes. But every morning, I didn't feel good about that. But every day that I'm in these trenches making a difference, every day, let me tell you, these women know when they see my face, I'm coming back to get funded or put them in a shelter. I'm taking a stand on this domestic violence, and I'm very serious about it. And I will tell you this, when I see 90% of my victims are Christians, that's a sad thing, people. That's really, really sad. But I'm going to serve notice today. We need more shelters in our city. I thank Mr. Caraway. I thank everyone for being here. I'm not going to say, because I'm telling you, when I get the mic, I'm ready to tell it all. I'm like, hey, let's go to D.C. Let's get some more shelters. Let's get some funding. Let's get our men on the front line. Let's take it on in, you know. I was approached by CBS to do a reality show. I said, I will not exploit women like that to make money. If you want to donate to a charity, let's do it. But look at us. I'm real about it. So be blessed, and I'm going to cut it short.
Wow. I don't know how I can follow that. Finally, I want to recognize actually a visual, because one of the things that we often talk about, we talk about the role of men as protectors, and if you notice, on either side of our illustrious panelists, we have two very strong men, and I want to speak to Dr. Carl Robinson, who's been in the trenches for a very long time, and God has put us in the same space and allowed me to shoulder up with him and continue this effort. So, Dr. Robinson, please take a few minutes and tell us.
Thank you, Mike. I'm in the mic. I got a big mouth, but coming behind Deborah, I think we'll just take up the offering and go home. But when I was approached by Lisette to look at doing something that would impact both international and our local scenes, I saw it as an opportunity to progress our joint efforts and to make sure that it has more than one prong, that it really reaches. And I'm the executive director of Greater Dallas Life Skills Executive Management Group, and my company works to provide services for about 5 counties in the domestic violence scenes for court-ordered and court-mandated classes, to include the BIP classes as well. And so we've been doing that for the past 12 years. I've been a counselor. My background is philosophy and psychology, pastoral psychology, but I decided to do classes because they were more cognitive than just sitting in a place bleeding on somebody else. So I decided that, and so I see over 200 men a year in my classes. So I had to become proficient enough that I was confident enough that I was allowing these men to go back to their families healthier. Because people kick trash cans and break out windows because they don't have another skill set. And so I'm kind of like Deborah, I'm about getting to the issue. If we're not going to get to the issue, we might as well go ahead and leave and go to Chick-fil-A and we got to be serious about the issue. We have an organization called Dallas Men Winning Against Domestic Violence, and so we're in tandem with the efforts of the city, and we thank the Honorable Mr. Caraway in his efforts as well, the next mayor of the logical choice for Dallas. But anyway, so I thought I could, hey, we're sharing perspectives while we're doing it. We might have well that. If you can't be real, you shut it down. My experience as a young boy in the 60s, about 6 years old, and I remember hearing Diana Ross come out with a new album. But I remember my mother's boyfriend telling her that I'm going to kill you. And when I get through killing you, I'm going to kill these kids. And we were young. We were like, what we do? Your children, you have to watch children. You have to give them more credit than what you do. They know it. You know, you tell the bill collector that, you know, tell him I ain't here. And he got on the phone and said, Mama said, tell you I ain't here. But my grandmother was in Bible study, and somebody in the neighborhood got word to her. And she went home and got a shotgun that didn't even work, didn't even shoot. And she came in and kicked the door in. That was the cavalry. And said, okay, told my mother, I remember it like it was yesterday. Can you get up, baby? And she stood there with a man over 250 pounds, 6'5" plus, and held him off until my mother could get to her feet. And we didn't wait for mama to leave. We saw the coast was clear, so we booked up too. So that was my experience with domestic violence very early. It didn't affect me mentally, but I found myself almost 45 years later in classes with men who had the same classic symptoms, who were struggling. And I know we cannot stop domestic violence because domestic violence is domestic violence before the 911 call. We can prevent some of it through education, and we need to help these men who are struggling and their families who are struggling with domestic violence so we don't fragment our families in the process. Everybody got some Band-Aids, but I need some medicine. And so that's what we are in terms of struggling to help these men in corporate America. I see IT people, I see surgeons, I teach corporate America how to get a grip. And that has been my commitment over the last 12 plus years. And so when we were asked by Lisette to get involved here, I quickly got on the phone and I rallied everybody that I could find. And I knew once I got Deborah, we will get it moving. I said, Mike, what you got? And then if we could just get a hold of Mr. Caraway, we already know what his heart is and what his pulse is. And so that's why we're here today. We hope that if you can leave with anything, that you will leave with a new mindset to start change right in your own home. That's where it starts. You can't start it anywhere. It starts with you. It starts with you. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Okay, we're going to take a few questions. And the first one, as I mentioned earlier, last month a report came out that indicated the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey found that 24 people per minute are victims of rape, stalking, and physical violence. Mr. Caraway, what can or should the city do to address that?
Well, it's very difficult to just pinpoint and say what can the city do more than we're doing something about it as we sit here today. This is a beginning of just another process in educating and exposing and talking about it. You never know when or where domestic violence will strike. So we have to do something, and I'll say this as men, and I'll go back to Grandma's story, and to say, certain people nowadays that involve some of these guys, I wonder what they think about themselves. That's number one. And I go back and try to figure out how they were raised. I look at today's numbers of domestic violence, how it is on the rise, versus what it was years and years ago when we respected, or the respect for women and ladies was at an all-time high as it relates to respect. Now, I'll tell you what I think had happened. I think Grandma didn't get a chance to use the switch and whoop some behinds as these folks were growing up. And folks may say, well, okay, well, we don't want to be whooping on people. Well, you look at the folks in this room,